And then finally, girls are more subject to predation and harassment, predators. It is. Even we had a doctor here, Dr. Reem, and she said that that's what she's seeing a lot of. These girls are getting predators all the time. And then somebody said when somebody asked and said, when can we give our children a smartphone or a device? Then they said, when you are ready for them to see pornography. Right there. Boys are no different. We keep our emotional intact, but we are failure to launch. You got, the guy sitting at mom's basement for the rest of his life or for a long time because addiction to pornography, low grades, video games. Video games in this book, to be honest, even though I don't know if it's true, I agree to what he's saying, but not because of any bias. He said that a little bit of video game is okay. But a little bit is like, we're talking about, cap it per day. But you leave somebody playing video games. As a young man, I think I would be able to play video games for 7 hours straight. I don't want that, right? And then they don't have that kind of control. No interest in achievements, no internet, no interest in having a family. Boys becoming virtual. Boys are becoming losers and hermits. All right, with that, it's a quick summary. It took longer than I expected. But here, let's talk about the spiritual impact. Slow it down a little bit. Can you imagine if Jesus was walking the earth now instead of back then? With seeing people walking around with their devices and looking and talking, and then his videos will pop up and somebody will talk about him and all that stuff. Can you see the impact that how Jesus would walk around, and what kind of miracles would he do? Can you imagine that one a little bit? Can you imagine him being judged so much by everyone around the world for a statement that was clipped out of his entire Sermon on the Mount? Can you imagine Jesus when he tries to take a quiet time and his phone is going off nonstop because, Jesus, we need you. We have somebody that you need to heal. Can you imagine the congregation around when he's trying to talk on the Sermon on the Mount and everybody's doing this and not listening? Would you think Jesus would be as impactful back then, right now, as he has been back then, with people that walked from city to city, meditated on the beauty of God, meditated on the words, thought of what's next, and really embraced boredom, which is the key thing that we talked about last week, the key thing for making your brain work well. One site, which is a satire, as a make fun of, a satire Christian that likes to make fun of everything. I like to watch it every now and then. Made a little bit of fun about it and said this. So I thought it was hilarious. I think that probably might have happened. There is a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of every man, which cannot be filled by any created thing, but only by God. The Creator made known through Jesus Christ. This was said by Blaise Pascal. If I said that wrong, he's a French mathematician and a philosopher and a theologian back in 1662. Well, we're living in the 21st century. So I'll tell you this. In lunchtime in late 2015, I was at a company. We're doing we're looking at this technology, blah, 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 having a meeting. And while I was going from one place to another, we stopped briefly by the lunchroom. They have a lunchroom that's like right in the middle of the company's hallways. And in lunchroom, they had like a couple of TVs, and they would like kind of play any kind of news. And in the news, there was an NBC or a CNN. So it's not on those, it's not Fox, or it's not like, Christian News Network or anything like that. And I think it was a CNN. But anyway, and in there, something stopped me in my track, because that I did not believe. It talked about a scientific study that shows that there's a part of our brain that's made specifically for God. And it kept talking about how the scientists and the psychologists are looking into it more, blah, blah, blah. But there's a part in our brain that says that, and then they start to kind of trying to connect it all to like evolution and whatnot, and he's saying, oh, here's why they were worshiping idols, blah, blah, blah. Now we have science. But then they did not focus on the part that scientists are saying there's a part specifically in our brain made for God. God created a room in our mind for him. He made it easy. Like, this is not, like, if we really kind of like just let our brain be our brain, he made it easy. That's why back in the day when the people around the world left God after Noah's Ark, and before that too, they couldn't just say, you know what, we don't believe in God, we're done. No, they had to find something else to worship. Now this time they had to find something that presented them. Like, hey, I want to do the wrong thing, I'm going to find a God that's going to do the wrong thing. Do you get me here? So then they made up their own God, which is really the devil. But God created a room for himself in our mind. When that void is not filled, we try to fill it with everything else. But the problem is that we are limited being with unlimited desires. I have limited physical abilities. I have limited mind, energy, whatever. I have a limited money. I have limited time. I have limited everything. But my desires are unlimited. And that goes to all of us. That came out of not this book. By the way, this guy is an atheist, and he wrote about an entire chapter about spirituality. And he, like, reading it, and I was like, dude, you might as well be a Christian. Anyway. But he's an atheist, and he said it, like, clearly. Anyway. And the problem is that we are trying to fill God's unlimited desires in our mind, because God is unlimited, so my mind wants unlimited, and his part in there, I'm trying to fill it with everything else. It's never going to be filled. That's why somebody like St. Anthony and St. Macarius and all of these saints said, I don't want any of this, because they're filled, they're God whole in their hearts, their minds, with God, as it was supposed to be. It's the only thing that fits in. Unlimited desires, unlimited God fits very well. But for us, we're trying to fit other things in there. It's not working out well. So, the spiritual part of this phone is very important. As I get into it, I want to hit these 5 points. First off, devices negatively impact personal and communal impact to spirituality. That's a mistypo right here. So the devices impact our personal communal spirituality negatively. Devices significantly degrades liturgical prayers. Devices significantly degrades personal prayers and stillness. Devices takes away from God's creation and beauty. Devices impact our moral and judgment. First off, in our favorite, liturgical prayers. What is the benefit of liturgical prayers? Prayer in synchrony, the same discussion here, the book in the physical mental part, he was discussing about how when, especially girls, when they grow up, that they like to sing and do things in synchrony. A lot of, like as an example, a lot of the younger girls in Egypt will play this Fattah ya warda, Fil ya warda, right? Like they all like sing together, and us boys will look at them like, what are you doing? Like this is not a fun game. But they would do things because they're singing in synchrony and they're moving in synchrony. They're doing things together. But not only that, this prayer in synchrony has been proven from the psychological and neurological aspect of us to increase trust and reduce loneliness. So us praying together, as that little picture here shows, raising our hands together, singing together, praising together, chanting together, prostrating together, worshiping together, bowing together, creates this trust and it reduces loneliness. That's why after we go out, we're kind of like, we're talking to each other in a different way. Another book about youth ministry talked about that outside has everything that we cannot compete with in church. The only thing that our church can compete with the outside easily is love. And if we don't have that, then outside is better. This same concept goes with this here, is that our prayer in synchrony and our prayer together liturgically bonds us together. Not only that, taken from another book called A Meal with Jesus, the power of eating together. Jesus came, one of the three things that he did, he came to, and he came eating and drinking. He did not just serve people food, he ate with them. And he took it all the way to the altar that we are all eating together with him, his body and blood. And that bonds us all together. Sacredness and reverence together creates stronger communities. There is a trust that we develop as we are praying together, this sacred part, this reverence part. Outside of the profane things that's outside, the profane is the secular, the profane which is us thinking about what we're going to do every day, and the kids and the food and the car and the house and all of this other stuff. The other stuff that we have to do in our life. This part creates something else. It lowers the rates of suicide. Yes, praying together in liturgy, together, here, drops the rate of suicide. I am not the scientist here, but this is coming out of that, our psychologist here, or I can't, whatever he is. It increases affection as we are completed here and we're seeing each other and greeting each other in affection. You can see that part there, and that lasts. Whether it's a week or more, it does last. And it creates selflessness. It creates us as in, I want to help somebody. I want to do something that is greater than just me. And that's why people that do leave the church, they tend to lose a lot of these pieces of the necessities that we need in our lives as human beings. Now, here's what happened when you put liturgical prayers with devices. The loss of holiness. The word holiness in its original Hebrew is kadosh, right? Which is very close to kudus, holy. Kudus, kadosh, holy. And that word has a meaning that I did not expect. It actually means to set apart or to separate. As in to set apart the holies away from the world. As to set apart our hearts away from the world. Is to be holy as I am holy, is set us apart from everything else that's out there that we know that is not taking us in a better place. While we are trying to be holy and we try to be set apart, we are immersed into our devices, looking about the text messages, the phone calls, the so-called emergencies that we keep coming up with. The youth are literally staying on these phones. Somebody has to tell them all the time, please get off the phone, give your time back, get your time back, gain your liberty. But they want to play the next video game, they want to see what's out there, what's on Snapchat, what's on this device, what is this girl saying, what is this guy saying, and who send them a picture of themselves while they're smiling or raising an eyebrow or whatever it is. Sometimes, and like I mentioned earlier, some of these pictures are, like I said, it's guys looking as deacons and they're looking at some girl in there that's provocatively dressed, missing some clothes. Then what is the point of being here? Where is the holiness in this? Where is the setting apart in this? Why are we allowing our children to stand here with phones? And what's the point? Just have him sit in a car and play with it. If we are being honest. And you know what? Here's something else that I notice. They will turn on the phone and look at themselves in a front-facing camera to make sure their hair looks nice, or the makeup is right, or whatever it is, their mustache is done right. And during the liturgy, what is the point of that? Where is the focus on God that we are here to praise together? Where is that focus together? Where's that synchrony in doing the sign of the cross holy together? Holy as in whole, as a whole, like an entire cross. Not one of those little, triangle or circle or whatever it is that we do quickly here. There's nothing sacred anymore. When we're not concerned or connected in liturgical practices, our neural circuits involved in spiritual practices will not connect. and branch, and it is much more difficult to be part of the community. And like I said, that age group, where whatever they're doing, it's going to wire together, whatever they're working on. If they're going to be creative in piano, then that's going to wire together here. If they're praying together, that's going to wire here. So here's a call to action. Families to leave the phones in the car when in church. There are no emergencies. And I'm going to repeat that. For 15 years, I've worked in a place where phones are not allowed anywhere near the building. As in, leave it in the car. I don't care if it burns in the heat of Florida. And my phone, my handheld phone, is the only way you can get hold of me. And half of the time I'm in meetings and away from the phone or can't answer it. And not a single emergency happened to me. What is the emergency? Mom is trying to get, that's by the way, number one thing. Mom or dad is trying to get a hold of me. You're in church. Tell her you're in church. Next time tell her, Mom, I'm in church. Don't get a hold of me. Where's Mom? She's sitting back there. Really? Or she's not here. So please, leave the phones in the car. The phones, nothing is going to happen to it. I've left so many phones in the car in the heat. I thought that thing is going to burn. And nothing happened to them. Leave them in the car. Get them away. It's your children. And it's other people's children that are watching what your children are doing. Our children are doing. It's funny because one of the youth in there, they sent me this article about the Netherlands. Now they're realizing, and this probably has an impact to all of this, realizing the impact of the phones and devices on education. And we talked about this last week, how just having the phone in front of them decreases their IQ and their ability to solve hard problems, just in front of them. So they started to install these boxes and things outside. So when you come in, if you have a phone, put it in a box, it's going to be locked up. On the way out, you'll take it. If you need to reach your kids, just like what happened to us, call the front office. We survived, I think. Anybody here did not survive? It's a very tough question. So maybe, some schools have the boxes. Figure out a way. I think it's an idea that we all kind of collectively, well, anyway. So, 0 devices in all church services. I would like to thank the Scouts, because I think the Scouts is the only one that I heard about that says no devices. And I'm pretty sure all of our services have no devices. But no devices in services, not Sunday school, not sports ministry, pre-servant, Scouts, hymns and Bible Academy, and so on and so forth. Keep the kids learning from and have a physical connection. More education on the harms of the phones to our congregation, to the Cradle Orthodox parishioners. Did I say that right? All right. Number 2, silence, stillness, and focus. Our church put great emphasis on silence and stillness. Pope Shenouda wrote a wonderful book. It's called Calmness. That book is great on how God is calm and how the universe is calm and how we bring our noise in with us, but it's all about calmness. The desert is calm. This is calm. And it talks about stillness a lot. So some of the beauty of our, that we can use our stillness and focus on is, number 1, mindfulness. We had Dr. Ayman here talk to us many times about mindfulness for the past few years. And it talks about how we can just spend 10 minutes and sit there and meditate and relax our bodies, be in the physical presence, look around you and notice things. A lot of times when you say, hey, look, have you seen this outside, this tree, this beautiful sunset, this whatever, or the icons around us here, you'll notice a lot of things, so just be present, be in the here. Number 2, slow life down and focus on what's important. We are in an ever-speeding world, and the phone is not making us any better. When we take breaks, we usually open the phones, but a lot of experts would tell you, if you're taking a break, don't do anything. Do not take your phone, because that's making your brain even more strained, and that's not taking a break from work. You got to take a break, put your device away, If you have to want to do something, get back to work or just sit there. But don't look in your devices. Give your time back. Let your brain rest. You cannot exercise to relax from exercising. It does not make sense. Number 3, it's a decrease in fear and cognitive emotion. So if you remember from last week, we talked about discover mode and defend mode. So some youth will come in, or some people, humans generally, will come in and go into something new and they say, discover mode. I want to see this. What's here? What is that? What does that mean? Or they will go in fear mode. That's scary. That's bad. That's evil. That's this. That's that. And we talked about this last week, that a lot of the Gen Zs have walked into college, that things are not scary, things are not, harmful, and the word harmful speech and, this and harmful speech that started to pop up, and they started to have to bring more psychologists in there to discuss with the youth and help them, recover from it. So now they are in a fear mode. But researchers conducted studies on Buddhist monks, and they discovered that meditation practices alter their brains in a lasting way, decreasing activation in brain areas related to fear and negative emotions. You can only imagine when the stories that we hear from our monks, obviously nobody's going to go in and say, Abuna, we're going to do a psychological, mental, neurological studies on your brain, but we see the results out of it. We don't need to get a study. These guys can walk in the dark and face snakes like there's nothing else, because they know that the cross and God, and this is from stories that I hear, we all hear, is our defense. God is our defense. All you need is 10 minutes a day for meditation, mindfulness, into Christian scriptures. You don't have to do the other practices. Some of it are very non-Christian, so be very, very careful with that. One story is when I was in college, so that was kind of mid-2000s to late 2000s, so before any of this was a big deal. My parents had this beautiful, large backyard in North Carolina, and it was nice grass. So I would go outside and pick up my books and go sit outside and when the weather is good, under the swing or whatnot, and I would just sit there and study. And between my studies, I would go and start planting things. And then I started a garden, and I started to grow the garden, and I started to tender the garden, and I started to grow that garden every now and then. Between my studies, that's what I did. And that's what got me through college. It was a big deal. A Christian author once said that our mind is a garden, and you either take care of it or it becomes desolate. So we have to tend to our mind as well. We got to tend to that garden, and you'll see the fruit of it. One of the fruits that I've planted all over the place was watermelon. I ate the best watermelon I've ever had. I left that watermelon grow until it cracked on its own. It was beyond anything that you can buy in the market. But that would have never happened if I did not take it. Watermelon is very hard to plant, by the way. It needs specific soil, it needs water, it needs all sorts of nutrients and things to take care of it, and you gotta tend the garden. So the vice's impact on stillness is increased tension, increased anxiety, less focus, and less calmness. It's self-transcendent is among the central features of spiritual experience. So loss of self has a neural signature. Social media turn your mind and thoughts about you and what I want, what I need, and what do people think of me. So at this point, the more I'm looking at this, I'm reverting to the opposite. I'm becoming less of me and more of whatever I'm watching. And now I want these things. Why can't I have this? Why can't I become this? Why I don't do that? Then your default mode network, which we talked about, you gotta stay still for so long for your brain to work properly, logically, and that's how you solve a lot of problems in your life, a lot of problems at work. So then you have no default mode network, which is DMN, due to pulling the phone in every few minutes. So you don't have the time to focus. You're just You're not being genuine. We're not being genuine to ourselves. We're not being ourselves. We're not coming up with our own ideas. At the end, I'm just seeing something and I'm repeating it to somebody else. The last point here, which is bedevilment, it's a very interesting word. If you don't know what bedevilment is, it is the state of or act of harassing, tormenting, confusion, disorder, and ongoing stress. So it's the opposite. Having a phone is the opposite of our godly teachings. Devices teach us to think about yourself first, about myself first. Be materialistic, judgmental, boastful, petty, seek glory as qualified by likes and followers, and that's what the phones are doing. Now, these phones are doing this to our children, and children are just seeking and dying for again, as we talked about it last week, they're dying for these likes because the logical part of their brain is only 20% developed up to like age 25. Otherwise, their emotional and their pleasure side of the brain has already been developed well, and that's what they're seeking. So we're giving that to them. Most young people become heavy, the little center thing here, the banner, heavy, is that users? Sewers. Users of social media during the sensitive period of godly learning between the ages of 7 to 15. If I recall to myself again, back, is that age time is where I learned most of the things that I practice now. Whether it's spiritual songs or psalms or hymns or a story or a study or a scouts, whatever it is that I was in church doing, this is that time for it. But if these young men and women are looking at these devices and that's what they learn when they are young, that's what they're going to be stuck with. The next point is God's creation and beauty. Personal story again. In attending, thank God, and thank God for all of us that we've attended thousands of liturgies. But the ones that I truly remember was the ones here in a church, not in usually in a small church, on Fridays at 5 a.m. That one usually finishes by 7, right? And at 7 o'clock, I would take the car and I would drive across the street to Safety Harbor. And I would watch the sunrise, watch the calmness of the water, and watch this. And interestingly, I wasn't the only one doing that. Others would do the same thing. And that is one of the most memorables, reading a psalm through that, or just meditating, or just looking at it, or just looking at the beauty of God's creation is something else that is imprinted in my head. I don't need to take a picture of it. Because that picture, if I took it, it's already long lost somewhere in my 10,000 pictures, but it's already here because every time I remember that, it reminds me of a lot. Jesus himself had his own realm, God himself, God, Jesus, has his own realm. He created this world for us. God did not create Adam and Eve, in a house mansion or something amazing. He did not build any of that. He created them in the biggest house and mansion he ever did, planet Earth, in the outdoors. Many of our beloved prophets and Old Testament sayings was focused on enjoying the beauty that God gave us. God built this beautiful, amazing planet with so many different wonderful scenes. He could have made it bland. He could have made us see black and white like bulls or whatever, some animals do. But he did not. He gave us the ability to see all of this beauty. As King David said, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky proclaims the work of his hands." Isaiah would say in Isaiah 40, he would say, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strengths. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." And you can see that in the outside, in the outdoors. Jesus himself said during the Sermon on the Mount, "And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the fields grow. Do they not labor or spin? Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in his splendor was dressed like one of those." When God wanted to show Abraham how many children he's going to have, he didn't sit with him in a tent and tell him about it. He told him, come walk with me. And he showed him the stars in the skies. And by the way, we don't see stars here. The light pollution completely destroys it. There was this funny story where in Los Angeles, and I can't remember the year, but they had a complete blackout in all of Los Angeles. And 911 was going off like there's no tomorrow. And everybody would call and say, we think the second coming is happening. And he told them, no, sir, ma'am, all you're seeing is the Milky Way galaxy. That's what the skies actually look like. If you ever, I've had the pleasure to be in a very empty place and very like mountainous that you can look up and I can see the sky. It's a blanket. It's an absolute beauty. But that's what God did to show Abraham. When God wanted to discuss the church after his resurrection with his disciples, he had a picnic with his disciples. And he told them, look, here's how I want things to be. So when he confronted Peter and told him, do you love me? So he told them everyone what's going to happen, how they're going to, what they're going to do. He discussed the church with them in the open, eating grilled fish and freshly made by God himself by the water. What else do we want? This is God's realm. This is what God created for us. But the devil had a different idea. He said, you guys created something cool, and I'm going to make a good use of it. As he always does, right? He takes whatever is good and he perverts it into something else. Those are the pictures I'm kidding. All right. Less time spent outside, and we talked about the impact of that. More time on devices. Now he can teach you what he wants you to learn. When they see something outside, people want to take a picture of it. I don't get that. But it's for the memory. How many of us actually look at these memories unless it pops up on our phone for us to see it? How many of us went back? Now, how many of you, please recall to yourself, like the example I gave, remember something so memorable from a beauty, from a picture, from something that you saw, and you say, wow, I can never forget this. Imprint it in your head forever. There's a book, it's called Orthodox Afterlife, and it talks about one of the main things that I took out of it is that when you go to heaven, whatever you learned on earth is going to go with you. So if I learned the latest rap song, so I'll be rapping up on the way up to heaven. But whatever hymns we've learned here, and whatever spiritual songs and praises, we're going to take that with us to heaven as well. So these images will probably last forever. I doubt that OneDrive, Google Photos, or iCloud is going to last forever. I doubt that we're going to go back that many years to look at these things, no matter what we do. So put the phone away and focus on the godly creation that he made for you. Take that picture with your mind and let it settle in. Let it be recalled naturally. Don't worry about what else. Phones increase quantity and decrease quality. Yes, I can see a lot more pictures and I can see a lot more things. In fact, they're trying to do virtual reality now where you can go in space and you can go on Mount Everest and you can see everything else. But that does not give you that physical ability to see things. It's just quantity, no quality. It is not an excuse that I can see nature on your phone because you know what? Goes back to our talk in the beginning of the discussion today, which is that's just another excuse for me to open up my phone and do other things. So then after an hour of social media, I'd be like, what did I want to do? Oh, yeah, I wanted to see what Mount Everest looked like from the top. Seeing nature on your phone is not the same. Awe in nature causes shifts in neurophysiology, a diminished focus on the self, increased pro-social relationality. I obviously did not write this, right? Greater social integration and heightened sense of meaning. This is from UC Berkeley Psychology. I assume Dr. Decker Kuttner. And he talked a lot about it in the spiritual part here in his book. This is quoted from the book quoted from this other guy's book. So if you think about it, It's not the same to see nature on your TV, on your device, on your phone, than it is going to do that. And God made that clear. So when you're connecting with God, it does require work, and you cannot take the easy path. We are not going to have a communion button on our phone. That doesn't make sense. Likewise, for us to go on, you want to see something natural, go on the hike, live in a tent, do whatever it is. I took my kids for a camping trip not too long ago. And then when I came back, I said, hey, where were you on Sunday? I was like, oh, we went camping with the kids. They're like, you mean you slept outside? And I was like, yeah, well, in a tent. He was like, on the street? No, not on the street, in a tent. But people don't grasp that concept of, well, why not? What is the big deal about it? Okay, but aside from that, just natural work together, right? Work helps us grow. So then growing creates everlasting memories. And memories creates connection with God. And then connecting with God requires work. So we go through that cycle again. But we can't take the easy path. None of these saints around you, our examples, our role models, the true stars that we should be looking up to, not the guys on our devices, and our youth and our kids are looking at on the devices, should be, have done anything other than that. They worked hard. They created that memory. They created that connection, that bond with God. Sorry, before I get to that one last thing on this thing. Because of in my place of work or prior place of work, it used to be very, 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 very high stress. So to help us, they had to give us like professional PhD efficiency and whatnot coaches. And this one coach was repeatedly talking about in the morning, if you go to work early or you work from home or whatever you do, you got to go out and take walks in the sun. It does something to our brain to allow us to wake up and be more alert, be more focused. But then your phone does emit blue lights as well, but the phone does not have nearly the same impact. This is a blue light, and this is a blue light, but God's light does more. We got to keep that in mind, is that your phone is not the answer, and we don't give each other the excuses, nor to our children. So silence and God's creation call for action. There should be more teaching of quiet time in Sunday school. Quiet time is probably one of those things, and it really depends on the church. In the church I used to attend in D.C., the quiet time was like one of those things that's like, we all shall do. God himself did. Again, thank you to the scouts for doing just that, taking them out to nature, keeping the devices away from their hands, and setting them free from it. Find time to walk with your kids outside and leave the phones behind. Find some time to just walk. Just walk. Let them go on the bikes or go on the scooters or go on whatever it is. But just walking outside in a neighborhood or a nearby park, just for a little bit, is extremely helpful. Have quiet time with your kids. It's easy. It's really easy. It really is. You take one verse and you sit with your child and you can just talk with them. What do you think of this? They're obviously not going to know in the beginning, but then you can say, hey, for example, Saint Mary telling Gabriel, whatever God wants. I don't know the exact verse. Then how she submitted herself to God's will. And you can expand on that. Talk back and forth. Have that conversation. It's going to solve a lot of problems. Again, can't stress it enough. Children needs time to play. Go to the parks, play in the playgrounds, climb trees, be in awe of God's work. A friend of mine was telling me that his son wanted to climb a tree, and his son is very active. So they took him like tree, and he said, go ahead, and he kept motivating him, and he ended up climbing that tree pretty high. That was last week. And then the kid did not want to, the kid I think is about 6 or 7, whatever, did not want to come back down because it was too high, and he said, no way. And they ended up calling the fire department to come and bring him down. So I told him, well, at least he learned. He said, yeah. He came in the next morning, he's like, Dad, I want to climb the tree again. And I was like, you know what the solution is? And he said, what, don't take him there? And I was like, no, bring a ladder. It's easy. Just bring your ladder with you and let him climb the tree. Let the kids enjoy. What's going to happen to them? Moms get dirty? Okay. They're going to get hurt? They'll survive. They'll grow. Anti-fragility is a thing. All right, finally, how does your device impact your morals and judgment? This is a very, very clear one for all of us. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. James 1:19 and 20. Social media encourages us and teaches us to make rapid public judgment and little concern for the humanity of those we criticize. No knowledge of the context in which they acted, and no awareness that we have often done the very thing for which we are publicly shaming the person. The news focuses on social media big time. This is what happened. This is so-and-so saying this on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So-and-so is saying this on YouTube. So-and-so is saying this on whatever. And they're just collecting all of these. And you don't know who these so-and-so are. Just people. It's just a comment that they liked. Putting politics aside. When Charlie Kirk was tragically killed, a lot of people started to judge, saying that he deserved it because of his speech. Meanwhile, people looked at about 10 seconds of the things that he talked about for an hour and made that judgment. That's just an example. This happens all the time. They will take a snippet. It happens to some of our priests. There was a wonderful priest that wrote books and books and books, and because he said something that was taken out of context, this one little snippet, and now the entire church congregation is saying that he's bad, he must go. What is the rest of it? Then the Pope said, I watched the whole thing, he didn't say anything wrong. But we're quick to judge. We're quick. We're not slow to, we're slow to listen, but quick to speak. What God versus devices do. And this is the epitome of devices. And it does grow our children to do likewise. Matthew 7, judge not that you be not judged, for with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. And why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrite. By the way, the word when Jesus said to them hypocrite, that's a judgment. We'll talk about that for a second. First remove the plank from your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Jesus did not say to not judge the situation. If I see somebody driving at me and driving the wrong way at me, I won't make a quick judgment to say, this guy is probably doing something wrong or out of his mind or he's on something, and I'm going to turn left, turn right, get out of his way because I don't want to be hurt. That's clear. But if I don't know the entire story, how am I supposed to judge that person? When I watch a debate between an atheist and a Christian, I do have to judge that person that's saying things the atheist that's saying things that's out of context and say, I don't think he understands it, or he's trying to lure the others into doing this and he does not understand the context. So there is an aspect of judgment. God did not say walk around passively, but he said you got to judge the situation and protect us for the sake of our eternity, right? Now here's what the devices do. Judge quickly and publicly, lest ye be judged for not judging whoever it is that we are all condemning today. Don't forgive, or your team will attack you as a traitor. My biggest worry right now is that this part that I just said is going to be snipped and put on social media and be like, look at this guy teaching in church that you should judge everyone. This is reality. This is what we're dealing with, and we all do it. Hey, look what so-and-so said on social media. How about this? There's one right there. Somebody was telling me at work, Ted Cruz was spotted in the airport leaving Texas, and it's probably because he's running away for his life because of the ice storm and the cold, and he's leaving everybody in Texas behind. Number one, why do I care? I don't, even if I live in Texas, why do I care? Ted Cruz doesn't do any decisions. He's a congressman. Why do I care? Number two, what if he's going to a meeting? What if he's trying to solve a problem? What if he has something pre-planned? How do you know? He's going to California. How do I know the full story? Why am I quick to judge this man? And again, all politics aside, you can say the Democrat side of the whatever, and I would say the same thing. Why do I care? Somebody's telling me this, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't care if he's, again, even if I'm in Texas, I don't care. But this is the problem that we are facing. Spirituality is dying for our youth, and is dying for us because we have devices that we're probably looking at right now as we are listening about how devices impacting our lives. So like I said, we talked about these points. Devices significantly degrade liturgical prayers that we need to be in sync with and the benefits from it. Devices significantly degrades personal prayers and stillness. Devices takes away from God's creation and beauty into that little device. And devices impact our moral judgment. One last verse which comes right after the one about judgment is this. Do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you in pieces. What is holy, what is kodus, what is set apart, let it be set apart. And don't give it to the dogs, don't give it to the swine. Don't throw it away into these devices. Refocus. We need to refocus our minds and our hearts back to God. We need to teach our children. Take the phones away from them, please. For the church, in church, they should not be having these devices. And let them wire the brain properly into the knowledge of God, the knowledge of eternity, the love for God, the fear of God, the wisdom of God, and let them live as humans instead of suffering and struggling with it when they grow up and say, Mom and Dad left the phone with me. You're not helping them. All right, with that, that's really it. I wanted to tackle, we have a few questions, but there's one that I want to tackle that was asked of me last week, and then several others talked to me about it as well. My kids is being bullied for not having a phone or social media. Okay, what if your kid is being bullied for not having a girlfriend or a boyfriend at age 14 or 13? Would you be okay with it? And why is that different? What if your kid is being bullied for having a different haircut? What do you think is going to happen to them if they are actually go through that struggle and understand that I don't need to have that device, I don't need to fit in to be like them? Okay, they grow up and be 16 years old. They grow up and be 16 years old, and they are being bullied for not having the latest and greatest car like everybody else. What are you going to do? Going to go buy them a Corvette? Going to go buy them a Mustang, a brand new car so they're not being bullied? Is that the solution? Bullying happens all the time. What if they are being bullied for being for too much weight or too little weight? What are you going to do? You're going to go and get them into a surgery for it? We get bullied all the time. I got bullied when I was a kid. I got bullied, and this is the funny part. I got bullied for having the nicest hair an Egyptian can ever have. No joke. Well, that's gone now. But at the time I did. It would always, regardless of what I do with it, would comb my head, and I had to do one of these things. What am I supposed to, my parents now shave my head bald because, I don't want to be bullied? So be it. I learned that I had the best hair an Egyptian can have. That's the end of it. And then as I grew up and somebody, said something about my hair or whatever from friends, and I'm like, it's not my fault you don't have good hair. That's the answer, right? Then these youth, when they grow up and he said, they're going to grow up and say, it's not my fault that you can't focus on your work. And now you have to pop medication for you to focus, which, by the way, impacts the psyche, like I'm mentioning this again. It impacts your sleep, impacts your heart rate, impacts your temperature, and does all kind of harms for you that you shouldn't be having anyway. So what? Let him get bullied. It's part of life. We all get bullied. Anyone here did not get bullied when they were in school? Okay. Should I go to another question or end it there? If I go to the next question, I'll just, yes ma'am. Another question? Okay, this question is going to be for you guys. I'm done talking. Well, so wait, anybody else want to have anything on this before I move on?
Girl who got bullied because she doesn't have a mom. Her mom passed away 2 years ago, and her friends are making fun of her. You don't have a mom, you don't have a mom, we all have moms, you don't have a mom. Like, it's the worst thing possible. So there are much worse things than not having a phone that you can get bullied for. They get bullied for any and everything. So she doesn't have, I don't know.
They get their confidence from their surroundings. So bullying does not help. So like bullying is a whole different topic all by itself. It's just, not having a phone just adds to it. It's not having a phone is not a problem. I think the bullying, just like you said, it's just a whole different topic by itself. I think the more we can build the confidence in the kids when at a young age, they'll be more, resistant to bullying when they get older and can help this whole thing.
Yeah, but being bullied and going through the struggle makes them stronger.
Well, some kids handle it better than others.
I get it.
Right.
But at the end, again, if the next step is boyfriend, girlfriend, and by the way, I'm saying that because I know a parent that said, his daughter got bullied into this and boyfriend, girl, the whole having a boyfriend thing, and she wants to have a boyfriend, so he said, okay, let it be. Is that the right answer?
No, it's not. It's the same thing. All these reasons are just not the reasons for bullying. It's just another reason.
My son told me, oh, I need this toy because, my cousin Jacob has, these cool toys. I don't have any cool toys. So he gave me this soccer set because my friend in school has this. So there's always a comparison. We have to deal with it very early on. And I keep telling him, yeah, you will find people that have cooler things than you, much better things than you sometimes. You have these things, they have these things. Doesn't mean I'm going to get it for you. Some things I can't even afford. I tell him this on purpose. And I want him to learn very early on that people will have other things that you do not have, and that's okay. So.
In California, there was this, I don't know if it's here too, but in California, there was a few years ago, there was a big thing about the American doll. American doll is a $150, yeah, somebody's just said, oh my God, $150, literally, it's a doll that's like made in China for like 50 cents. It's selling for $150 or whatnot, and then it has its own stores and all things that you can buy for, and it's all overpriced. Like pretty much you go in and you get out of there with a $1,000 bill. And all of these girls in California were a must-have. It's a must-have. So now, girls that don't have it will cry to the moms like, I want to have the American doll. Some mom said, I'm sorry, but I'm not paying that money for an American doll made in China. It just doesn't make sense. And others said, well, I want my kid to fit in. But then it's at the end is like this kid is being bullied because she doesn't have that doll. Oh, she's going to get bullied. Life goes on. All right, questions for you, if we have another few minutes. What problems do smartphones, social media, and screens solve in your family, and what problems do they create?
When you need to use Google to look a question or something for homework, you can get it then. But it also creates a problem where it's taking us away from each other. So less quality time, and that quality time affects kids, families, parents. So yes, everything has a plus and a negative, but the way how you use it is how it affects you.
Yeah, it does. It is a very good source of information. But, again, there was a couple of studies, not just in that book, that talked about having the phone just present in the room makes us dumber because we always rely on, I don't have an answer, I'm going to go look it up. But you're absolutely, it does separate us from each other. Anybody else? Anyone else? What problems do smartphones, social media, and screens solve in your family, and what problems do they create? Try.
I'll tell you what problems they create from what I see with I don't need a microphone, I'm pretty loud. From what I see with serving a lot of teenagers, and I have kids myself, so I do find once they start getting attached to social media or smartphones, they tend to get very isolated. Whether it's not just about lack of special time with your family or anything, they're isolated even from kids their own age group. So they sit in class, they're attached to their phone, and they're not talking to everybody else. And I'll find also those kids that are attached to their phones, when we have group activities, they don't know how to deal with others, to the point that some of the girls don't even know how to make a phone call because they've gotten so used to just texting, they can't talk person to person or even voice to voice. I've noticed that in a lot of teenagers I deal with. The lack of communication, they then go out in the world and they don't know how to deal with people. They don't know how to maintain a job. They don't know how to deal with others in school. It's not just the isolation at home. Then there is also a gap between them and their parents because they see so much from the outside world on their social media, they just don't know how to deal with their parents anymore because their parents are trying to enforce rules and they see an outside world that has no rules. So they've created a conflict within themselves that they don't know which one is right anymore. So it just creates way too many problems. So much to talk about.
You're hitting everything that we've been talking about for the last week and this week for sure. Anyone else? We have 2 more minutes. I won't jump to the next question. So anyone else?
Well, a good thing that smartphones do for us is that it connects us with friends and families who are far away. All the problems is everything we talked about this week and last week. For an example of a good thing, that the screen does for us, like in my family, for example, our wind down time is when we get together all as a family and we get together, we just put up a show and watch it together. I don't look at it as a negative thing because it brings us together and it just makes us put everything away and we just sit down for an hour and watch something together as a family.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, time together. Yeah, we can sit together and watch something together. That's something different. Everything within reason, of course. Like if I'm watching doing a 17-hour watching a show from all the series or the entire whatever episode, every episode in one series for 17 hours, probably not a good idea. But yeah, we're talking about we're gonna sit together, we're gonna watch something for half an hour. I get it. Or a movie or whatnot. Yes. Anyone else? Yes.
I'd like to say an advantage, I think, of social media. I think there's a lot that you can learn, on a device that you might not be able to learn in school. You can learn how to, code or play chess or things like that. I think that not everyone can, also if you're struggling in school, I don't think everyone can, have a tutor or something like that. So, yeah, I think there's, a lot of positive things on social media as well.
So we don't learn from social media. There's a lot of learning ways, Code Academy or Khan Academy and whatnot, right? Those ones, yes, but those are also on a computer. With supervision, parents with you, sounds great, right? But not social media. Social media that does not teach God, does not teach schools, does not teach any of this stuff. There are some videos and things on YouTube, but that also needs to be supervised because you don't know what else is going to follow, because the algorithms are really calculating what you're watching and see what else is relevant, and it goes from learning to intervening, thank you, indoctrinating, and so on and so forth. So it's, again, it's not the social media, and it could be on a computer. It doesn't have to be on your phone, sitting by yourself on a corner. And it could be in a family setting or an educational setting. But these are kind of different.
I try to encourage more than going directly to YouTube or going directly to the internet. I think if more kids were to use books, it would help a lot.
Books does create, it makes things substantially better. In fact, learning from a book directly improves your retention. Because now you're writing and you're reading and doing other things, but just a visual, I think the retention rate for that, for information, is about less than 10% after a few days, which means everything that you watch to learn, after, within hours, it's already, most of it is gone, and then you reach it to like 10%, then you're down, after some time, you're down to like a line. But then when you read it, when you write it, when you take notes, when you do other things, that's when you truly retain it to a much higher percentage. But thank you for that. That's very good. Thank you. Anyone else? I think we're about a minute away. So next week, yes.
Sorry, no, we're done. I was just gonna add. I do see what you're saying with the video, with the videos. I think, like guitar tutorials or something like that, or playing an instrument. There is value in watching a video. I think not everybody learns from books. There's a lot of online tutorials that can be helpful, or that you can find on YouTube, how to crochet, how to do whatever. Obviously, it's a double-edged sword because there's other things that are distracting or not as helpful. So I think it's just like a balance, like you're saying, with supervision. And then to add to that, with social media, there are things you can learn from there, but there's also a lot of false information. I kind of recently learned that for some reason. Whatever I was watching on social media, it knows that I like to watch Mike Tyson fights or whatever. And so it was giving me this little snippet of a fight that Mike Tyson had with another boxer, which I never heard of, and when I looked it up, it was like not real. It never happened, but they showed it very real, like he knocked the guy out, and it was all just AI. And there's a lot of videos out there that will show like different interactions with people that never actually occurred. And so there is a lot of, I think with that advent of AI, there's just going to be a lot of things that never actually happen that people can create that look very convincing, and I can get fooled by them, but I think also older adults that are watching them, like the older generation, can easily get fooled by them. Younger kids. So I think there's a lot of misinformation. So it's like a balance of information that can be helpful, but knowing how to find that and where to find it, like you're saying, like reputable sources. And the only other thing I was going to say is, I think also just having smartphones, and this isn't necessarily social media, but there's I think the concept of having private, I was just talking to a friend today, of like having private time is very hard now, because anytime you're in the middle of something, you're praying or doing something, and you get a phone call from a family or a friend, if you ignore it, there's this feeling